all for joining me here. My name is Jasper Adams. I work at the College and Career Center here, and this is Peggy Shay. She has taught me everything that I know, and now has left it to me to present it all to you today. And we're going to be covering financial aid, which is, as I know, everyone's favorite topic. We all love cheering for financial aid. So we're going to start by talking about how to reduce the costs as much as possible, then different forms of financial aid, and at the very end we're going over the start of FASFA and WASFA information. If you're here for a detailed guide about how to complete either the FASFA or the WASFA, I am sorry to disappoint you. We're only going to go over the first step of it because as of last year and continuing this year, the government has been updating the FASFA form to try to make it easier for people to complete. And they're not opening it this year until December 1st. And so we don't know exactly how they are changing it and are waiting just a little bit longer to see what changes they are going to release. So today we're going to cover everything else that we can, and both of us will be available to support you through individual meetings or through larger financial workshops closer to that December 1st start date so that you guys can have all of the information that you need about how to complete the FASFA and or WASFA. So with that already said, we're going to talk about how people refer to calculating costs, because the number one thing that I see from families, and especially from individual students, is a concern around that big sticker price number that a lot of four-year universities are going to show you right off the bat. So when people are talking about cost of attendance, it's going to include any on-campus housing, it's going to include books, lab fees, supplies. Sometimes they include personal transportation. If a lot of their students use cars to get to campus, they're going to include gas. Otherwise, they might include the bus fees for the area. If the school requires a meal plan, that's going to be factored in, and you're going to see a much higher price on there than what is actually going to be taken from your bank accounts by the school itself. So we usually, when we're comparing different schools, actually want to look at the cost of tuition. That's just the upfront cost for classes, it covers school fees, and depending on the school, it might include books and lab fees. That's one that you kind of have to look at individually, but at least nothing else is going to be listed in there that you won't have to pay the school directly. So if you're looking here, this is University of Washington, just so that everyone is on the same page. We all know this school. So you can ignore this lower two frames here because this is for non-residents. I presume everyone here is a resident of Washington. And if you're looking through the list here, you're seeing housing and food, if they're living with parents, is significantly cheaper than living on campus or living with dependents. And the reason for that is obviously if your parents are cooking a lot of the food for the students, you're going to be already know how to be cost effective when you're buying food and prepare a meal that's going to last for a while and all that, and it's going to keep costs down. When you're living on campus, there's going to be a lot more takeout, there's going to be a lot more eating meals on campus, and there's going to be a lot more coffee with friends. So that's a number that you don't need to consider when you're actually looking at how much the school is. Same thing with personal, miscellaneous, and transportation. That's something you want to calculate for your own specific situation. And so then when you look down at resident tuition, right before the bolded purple line, that's how much they are actually charging. And you'll see that it's for 9-month expenses for 24-25. So this isn't covering any summer housing at all or summer food costs. And that's something that you'll also want to pay attention to site by site is this including the summer housing or what is expected for the summer program? Are students flying home? If they're going to be staying on campus, what are the resident options? It can have a really big impact on price because you'll see the resident tuition goes from $12,973 all the way up to $23,103, or 131. And so that's nearly a double price right there. It's huge. So considering those options, if we go to the next page here, then you'll see that if you're living closer to home, the prices are significantly cheaper, as you might assume. Those of you who already grabbed the 2-year versus 4-year college handout, a lot of that's going to be covered in here. But you'll see I pulled up the computer science and nursing programs at LW Tech, which if you haven't already been up there, it's right up the hill. These programs are showing you the total estimated cost of the program there at the end. So this is not including housing, not including fees, not including transportation. And I specifically picked these because they have all of the degree types that you might be interested in. So BS, Bachelor's of Science, for the entire computer science Bachelor's of Science, you're looking at $41,000. For the DTA MRP, DTA stands for Direct Transfer Agreement. That means if you graduate with that degree, you'll have gone there for 2 years and you'll be able to transfer to any four-year school in the state of Washington, already having completed those first 2 years and only need to do 2 more. And that's only $17,000 for those first 2 years. Under nursing, we have the AAS, which is your Associates of Science transfer degree. And there you can see nursing, $2,100. Or for the nursing certificate, it's only $2,900. So depending on what degree you're going after, it can be significantly cheaper to start at a community college and then transfer to a four-year college later on. So if you're really trying to reduce costs, living at home, reducing transportation and food is gonna be fantastic, but looking at exactly what courses that you need to take initially, almost everywhere is going to require English 101, a basic math class, maybe even a basic science class, depending on your degree. You can get those at a community college significantly cheaper. Community colleges usually cost charge per class individually. So when you're looking at all the different class options, you might only need to spend a couple $100 on 3 classes for a term, a full 15 credits. So you can see that a computer science direct transfer agreement, the first 2 years at $17,000 is significantly cheaper than just 9 months at UW, where if you're living on campus, that's quite a chunk of change comparatively. Going on ahead here. So how much should you expect to pay? Well, if you're going to school in Washington, your estimated annual tuition, just tuition, $8,400. That's not including lab fees, that's not including books. Now, one of the reasons why I don't tell people to look at the book fees as much is because a lot of students are able to borrow them from friends, check them out from the library, find them cheaply online, things like that. They're around. But when you're looking at the total cost to live on campus, yikes, we jumped up quite a bit. And that's not to say that living on campus is a bad thing. There's a lot of benefits to living on campus, including being able to network with peers, being able to better access teachers' office hours, having better support networks for homework, and things like that. But we do need to factor that into the actual cost of attending that school. If you're going to community college, you're averaging about 45 credits total per year. That's 15 per term. And that's only $4,700 or so. So you can see that community college is significantly cheaper, and that's why so many of our students are currently choosing to pursue Running Start and other early college options and complete their associate's degree currently or directly after school. It just makes a lot of sense financially. Now, if we are looking at out of state, this is really scary to a lot of people. They don't want to go out of state because they're saying it's so expensive, and you can see here, this is just alphabetical order, some of the ones you're going through. In-state, $10,000, out-of-state, $27,000, in-state Alaska, $8,800, out-of-state, $25,000. People get really scared of going out of state. But there is a solution to this as well that can significantly cut the cost for going out of state, and that is WUI. So WUI is Western Undergraduate Exchange. And it is a program that's native to the Pacific Northwest, where you're able to attend another school in this area and only pay 150% of in-state tuition. So the ones on the previous page were significantly more than twice as much for most states. Here, you can look up the school that you're interested in and see how much cheaper it is. So we're seeing Phoenix College for only $4,300, California State University $8,600, which is a significant price reduction even compared to UW that we were looking at earlier, and can be just as cheap as going to a community college in the area. Now, the one thing that's really important for WUI is that some schools offer it by program. And so they might say, you can come for significantly less than the out-of-state tuition, but only for our biochemistry department, or only for our nursing department. Because they're full in other areas and they don't want to take on additional students for their very successful engineering program, but they're happy to try to fill up their nursing program. One last thing on that slide. It's not WUI anymore for some reason. It's called WUI, but their site is witchy now, and when you go on it, it says WUI, so just pay attention to this little link in the corner and really explore it. It's not just the Pacific Northwest anymore. While it started here, it's also including Hawaii, Montana, Utah, Arizona. It's covering a lot of different states. It's pretty awesome. Now we move on to types of aid. So you have probably heard of at least 3 of these before. Scholarships and grants, we're kind of lumping those into the same category right now because they're generally pretty similar to each other. FASFA and WASFA, you will only need to apply to one of these. Loans and work study. Work study is the one that most people have questions about, but let's go through them in order. So for scholarships and grants, they are money that you don't need to get back, or don't need to pay back. It's deposited usually directly to your school, and depending on who you're getting it from, it can be deposited directly into your bank account. That's why sometimes scholarships and grants can be used to cover things like books, laptops, travel to and from. We've seen some pretty impressive scholarships here. And a lot of people think they can only get scholarships if they're a 4.0 student with the hardest classes they've ever taken, but you can get scholarships for volunteer hours, for various interests. There's scholarships for twins. There's scholarships for people with naturally red hair. There's one about how do you survive the zombie apocalypse. There's some really interesting scholarships out there. If you flash us ahead to the next slide here, there's lots of different ways to find them. So a lot of workplaces actually offer scholarships for students, whether that's the adult's child going back to school or whether that is the child themselves who is currently working, especially like Dick's Hamburgers in Seattle has a great scholarship program. We've seen a lot of them pop up from a bunch of random places. Any organization you're a part of, it's worth asking. So if you're a part of Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, if you're at a specific church, if you're volunteering with any nonprofit organization, they offer a lot of scholarships that you might not be aware of. And you can also find scholarships online. This is where most people are finding them. There's actually a dating app for scholarships where you can swipe left or right about whether or not a scholarship matches what you're interested in. We tend to refer to these 3 sites for students, though. I haven't tried out scholarship dating apps yet. I'm not that desperate. But bigfuture.collegeboard.org is the one that I tend to send people to first. It is the most comprehensive, and the scholarships have had the most background checks, so to speak, so that you can know that anything on there is going to be legitimate. We also send people to goingmerry.com and to niche.com. But before you guys go exploring all of the scholarships online, there's a couple of things that you probably want to be aware of as far as red flags go. So, is that next? Okay, well, I'll come back to red flags then, I guess. Yeah, so don't be afraid to reuse scholarships or the essays that you're sending to colleges. You can just write one essay about how you want to take care of the environment and then go on College Board and use scholarship type or field of study to narrow it down and try to find every other scholarship about environmental impact and apply to all of them. I'd love to see students do that. Any kind of supplemental essay you're writing, the main essay that you're writing to get into college, try to apply for any and every scholarship with that. It will save you a ton of time and a ton of money. When people get a little bit tired about scholarships, it's generally because they stop thinking about it as far as time to money ratio. If you were to try to work a job to get $20,000 as a high school student, it would take you quite a while, significantly longer than writing an essay and asking your mom to proofread it. But now let's go on to our red flags. Don't pay to apply for scholarships, please. There's one site that you can pay for, and that's it. If you need to pay to be considered, it is almost always a scam. Know who is offering the scholarship to you. What you are giving people in return for money is your data. We already know that people are buying and stealing our data. We've all seen ads about this, that, and the other thing to try to protect it. But you are directly giving information to various scholarship companies. And they might choose to target you for ads or emails or phone calls to whatever number you put in. You can absolutely make a different email that all of your spam and scholarship information will go to, but you still have to go through it to make sure that you actually find any of the scholarships that you want. We also really want to be on the lookout for fake winner emails, where they say you won, you click on it, you put in more information, and then they just take off with money and your information and weird stuff like that. So this is just keeping track of who you actually applied to, whether that's all in one software or website that you choose to use, or keeping track of it in a spreadsheet, just so that you know if there's a winner email coming through, it's from someone that you know and trust. With that being said, when I was talking about making sure you know who is buying your data, we see a lot of students go to niche.com because they love the no essay scholarships. They love them. I love them too. Except for this one from Sally Mae. Now, I don't have anything in particular against Sally Mae, but a lot of people do. They're just a fairly aggressive loan company. So it's not that when you apply for this that you're applying for a loan. You are just applying for a scholarship. They will be giving out the $2,000. But they are going to have your information, know that someone in your family is going to college, and they might choose to start bombarding you with calls or emails about getting loans from them. If that is worth it for that application, then that is totally fine. It is still legitimate and real money. It's just worth knowing what's going on. So I always recommend, before you apply for a scholarship, just Googling the name. That's all you have to do. This is one of the first things that came up when I typed in Sally Mae. Was a 1.5-star review, absolutely horrible and malicious company. You literally just have to Google the name. It should only take you 5 seconds to figure out whether or not they're legitimate. But most scholarships are totally fine. I don't mean to scare you off from this. It's just to keep you all safe. Now, the CSS profile is the one scholarship that you might have to pay for. Now, this is directly through College Board, which is the site we were looking at a little bit earlier. And there are lots of specific schools that ask you to complete the CSS profile. And what this is it's a comprehensive review of a family's finances. It's including things like home loans, car loans, mortgages, savings, payments like childcare payments. And they're using that to see if the school can award you more money for something that doesn't show up on the documents that have been submitted through FASFA. If the school requires it, feel free to submit a CSS profile. If none of the schools that you are applying to ask for it, don't bother filling it out. It takes a ton of time, it costs money to set up, and a lot of schools just don't even recognize that it exists. If they ask for it, definitely do it though, because then they do want to try to give you as much money as they possibly can. So now we are going to move on to FASFA and WASFA. So the FASFA is what you're going to complete if you have a social security number, a green card number, or an alien identification number. If you don't have one, great, you get to complete the WASFA. Very similar processes for both, just for slightly different families. So, why should you apply to the FASFA? I get this a lot because a lot of families think that they make too much money or that they wouldn't qualify because of this, that, or the other thing. FASFA is going to give you grants, the Pell Grant that you will not have to pay back. You are going to be able to get loans through FASFA or WASFA, and these loans were the ones that were paused during COVID. They're loans that are generally at a lower interest rate than what you'd be able to get at your general bank. And we'll go over later how there's some loans that you don't need to start paying back and don't develop interest until your student has graduated and been out of school for 6 months, which I think is very generous. You're also going to be able to access college scholarships because a lot of different colleges actually look at your FAFSA report. It's sent to them during the application process at some point or directly after you've been admitted there. And they're going to use that to determine how much financial aid they want to get your family. We just saw today that Gonzaga has a program that if you qualify for the Pell Grant, you get full 4-year free tuition there. It's important to fill this stuff out if you think that you will qualify for anything. This is not paid for by Gonzaga University. You're also going to be able to access federal work study, which we'll talk about in a little bit. And there's the possibility of you getting the college-bound scholarship if your student is registered for it. And we'll cover all that in a little bit more detail now. So who qualifies? Pretty much everyone qualifies for something through the FASFA. So schools rely on that data in order to know what scholarships to give you, like I was just talking about, and most families do qualify for subsidized or unsubsidized loans. And a lot of those loans will transfer anywhere in the US. Some of them will even transfer to England and Canada, just kind of depending. The Pell Grant never does, but the loans do. The Pell Grant is up to $7,300 now. It's increased from 3 years ago. And the amount that you get depends on how much money you make as a family. If you are a single parent, then that is your family. If the student is an individual, that is your family. If you have 3 or 4 or 5 children, that is your family. It's looking at whoever is working and calculating a lot of the money in there and looking at 50,000 or less, which, not great. We would love to see everyone be able to get that $7,300, but if you make more than that amount, you're still going to be able to get some of the Pell Grant. It just depends on how much more that you make. So, loans are not evil. Not all of them, at least. The subsidized loans are the ones that you do not need to start paying interest on while you're in school, and you also don't need to start paying back the loan. And this is for 6 months after you're out of school. So if you take the summer off, you don't need to start repaying it. If you take 2 terms off and it's 5 months and a half or so, you don't need to start repaying it. If you take a year off and then decide to go back to school, your loans might have restarted for 6 months, and then they'll be paused for the next part of the time when you're in school. The unsubsidized loans, you still don't have to start paying back while you're in school or for 6 months after you've been enrolled, but you are developing interest on them while you've taken them out. As far as the college-bound scholarship goes, you will have hypothetically been acknowledged as being part of the college-bound scholarship in 7th grade or 9th grade. We're seeing that this generation of students is the first ones who aren't aware that they signed up for it because people started being auto-enrolled. You were enrolled if you were a part of free and reduced lunch in 7th, 8th, or 9th grade. And any student who is in foster care or a dependent of the state in 7th grade through high school graduation will get the college-bound scholarship. So what is work study, the last aspect of the FASFA and WASFA that you should be aware of? Well, it's guaranteed to work on campus. You get to do a lot of fun, random jobs, and they know that you're a student, so while a regular job might say, I don't care whether or not it's finals week, you need to be in here on Friday from this time to this time, the work study is going to be spread out so that they know, okay, if you have a class from this time, it's totally fine, we'll have you come in and work at this time. It's generally slower paced jobs so that you're able to work at the same time on your homework or anything like that, sometimes just talk with your friends, and they're gonna pay you directly so that it doesn't need to go to your loan if there's other things that are more pressing like food. It's great, easy work experience. When it shows up on the FASFA, there's gonna be 3 options for you. It's saying, are you interested? Yes, no, maybe. If you select maybe, you probably will not be considered over all of the students who chose yes. You can always turn down the Pell Grant, the loans, or work study when it is given to you at the time that your FASFA is processed. You don't have to accept all of them, you can select anything that you would like to. So I suggest selecting yes for work study if you think you could be interested in it, and then turning it down later if there's any problems or any reason why you choose not to, or just a better paying job that's near campus that has people you love. What was that?
How many questions are there?
We'll be pretty close to questions, so just give me 1%. Yeah, let's go on to the next one. Yeah, there's no penalty whatsoever if you say that yes, you want work study and then you choose not to later. So for applying to the FASFA and WASFA, you're going to first create an account that has an ID. You need one for the student and one for the parent for both programs. This is usually the point where we see most parents and students have a hiccup. So it either is really fast and easy to do, you get it done in 10 minutes, you already have your student social security number, you guys already know your own or your alien identification number or green card number, you put in your date of birth, the student puts in a few colleges that they're interested in, you're done quick and easy. For some families, especially families with complicated histories, whether that be divorce or immigration, there can be a problem with the government trying to figure out exactly who you are that can lead them sending you through hoop after hoop to verify your identity. You can absolutely set up a FASFA or WASFA profile at absolutely any point that you choose to, and just to make sure that you don't encounter any of those hiccups, we recommend setting one up ASAP, as soon as you are able to. It's really important and it will save you a ton of time and stress later. The only other thing that you're going to need is to have access to your income information. This is for the later part of the FASFA and for the WASFA. If you filed online, you're able to automatically import that information. But if you use a tax filer and you don't know the password to get online, you're going to need those physical documents in order to record the information properly. So this is what the FASFA site looks like. It's studentaid.gov. You're going to click on here. There's going to be a big notice up at the top about whatever they've been up to changing it lately. Don't worry about that. You're just going to start by creating an account, and I literally can't show you screenshots from beyond that because the very first thing they have you do is just enter your name and information and carry on from there. It tends to be pretty straightforward until it's not. As far as the WASFA goes, it also is just, as far as creating an account, your basic information. Go ahead and give me the next slide. Yeah, so their start button is down here. It's through the Washington Student Achievement Council. And the only difference between the FASFA and the WASFA, other than who qualifies for it, is that families who use the WASFA can only use the scholarships for within Washington State. Now they have higher grants that are available, but of course they're only available to students who don't have another form of ID other than, if they don't have a social security number, green card, or alien identification number, you can apply. What do we have next? So the full application is going to open on December 1st. And the biggest mistake we generally see families make is that they'll wait and they'll say, oh, well, we want to see where you're accepted to, they'll wait until January, then they start waiting until February, and then things start getting caught up with finals, and they're like, oh, we keep pushing it off and off. The Pell Grant does run out of money. So if you're one of the families that qualifies for the Pell Grant with $50,000 or less, $50,000 or less, then you will want to try to jump on and do the FASFA as close to December 1st as possible. A lot of families fill it out on the 1st, but if you have to wait 15 or 30 days, that's okay. But as soon as we start getting closer to that 2-month mark or 3-month mark, if you end up encountering any problems with importing your financial information, it's going to push it to a point where you may no longer be able to get the Pell Grant. And we just want to make sure that everyone is aware of that, not to scare you, but just to make sure that it gets done. So, in order to help you with that, we're also offering a one-on-one financial aid workshop with all languages supported. And we're going to be going through the FASFA or WASFA, whatever you need help with. We have phone translators and a few in-person translators if we need any help with that. And it's going to be September 26th from 6 to 7:30. If you haven't already been in the College and Career Center, it's around the front of the building. We're right near the doors, and that's where we'll be hosting it. You can drop in for any amount of time. You don't need to stay there the full time. But to help answer individual specialized questions about, your specific needs in the FASFA, because having it in an open forum like this, a lot of people don't want to share those facts, and it's not relevant to everyone. And so, the last thing I want to mention is study abroad, which I touched on earlier. But if you're considering studying outside the country, you need to really check to make sure that your scholarships transfer and to know what loans are accepted by your school. There are many schools in the US that offer study abroad. It could be offered your first year, it could be offered all 4 years, you might change where you are, or you can stay in the same place, and your FASFA and your scholarships will go to help cover any study abroad you do through a US school. So if you're worried or confused about trying to get financial aid information from another country, maybe start with your first year here and see what you're able to accomplish with just the scholarship money that you're able to get through, submitting your essays and trying to be your best self. You'll generally see that it's not too much more expensive than it would be to just be taking regular classes at the school anyway. And now, we're open for questions. I'm going to have Peggy come and bring the microphone down to you guys so that I don't have to try to pick you over the blinding light that I keep stepping into.
Hi. For the W-2, the work study, is that considered like W-2 income that you have to file, or does it go towards the school directly?
Students are paid directly. It doesn't go to the school. But as far as income and how that's qualified, we have to double check. It's probably similar to like if your kid had a part-time job. So it would just be rolled up either into family income or if you guys are filing separately. Because like if somebody if somebody earns under a certain amount, you don't even have to file. Yeah. Does that make sense?
Also for the work study, I think I can answer that. Is it something that you apply directly through FASFA or is it something that you do to the school?
Yes, apply directly through FASFA. It'll just be literally one question on the FASFA application.
How does FAFSA handle divorced parents and income?
So there's something that they recently introduced called the Parent Wizard, which when your student is going through, it will identify which parent is supposed to be submitting the financial information. It's generally whichever parent the student lives with more. If there's not a clear differentiation between there, we just say whichever parent earns less should be the one completing the FAFSA. So this year, they've currently said that it is going to be December 1st. The little handout that you guys grabbed is the misprint. I apologize, it's the first one I grabbed. It says January 1st on there because last year they said they were going to open it in December, then they said they were going to open it in November, and then they ended up opening it in January. This year they have said December and we are holding them to it. They should open in December this year. We don't know if it will open in October in future years, but their most recent communication to us has said December 1st. Yeah, they might be outdated or they might be relying on different information than what we have seen. But the communication that we've gotten from the college board that we're a part of says December 1st.
Strange question. So everything's open December 1st. Can we go in and fill everything out and literally hit submit on that 1st? Or do we need to put it on our calendar and it goes up to the laptop on the 1st?
Yeah, so you can only you can only create your account info before that December 1st date, and then on December 1st is when you're able to actually access the application. If you wanted to preview it, there's plenty of walkthroughs with last year's that you can access online. We'll also be posting one to the College and Career Center website that will be near where this video is going to be posted. You guys are on camera, just the back of your heads, don't worry. And so you'll be able to see it there, and you'll be able to see a walkthrough of exactly the steps that need to be taken for the FASFA or WASFA to be completed, according to last year's information, and we're hoping it doesn't change too much.
Yeah, we don't get a sneak peek, sorry.
If you submitted any documents to the IRS digitally, they should be accessible to you digitally. You should not need the paper versions unless there's something that was filed separately. Yeah, most of the time, if you file digitally, everything will be available digitally.
So I have a question. When a student is admitted into the school and they get their aid, does the aid change the federal aid change depending on the school?
The only reason why federal aid would change is if you were offered more scholarships from the school to cover all of tuition. So if you did qualify for the Pell Grant and then a school like Gonzaga, still not sponsored, was going to cover all of your tuition, that Pell Grant would disappear and go back into the federal fund. Your tuition would still be covered, but you wouldn't be getting that extra $7,000.
So if my child is not graduating until next year, it always takes me a long time to do everything. So would I still be able to input information this year, or would I have to wait till December 1st or whatever the date is next year?
That's a fantastic question. You will only need to put in that information for the year that your student is going to school. What I'd focus in junior year or anything below that is to work on scholarships. They are available pretty much from freshman year onwards, and it's a great opportunity to practice essays for college. Other than that, wait until whenever it opens in the senior year.
Wonderful, thank you. Once he gets to senior year, then maybe look at even starting an ID, but I wouldn't even start an ID at this point, because with everything that has been changing, they might tweak that, and you'd have to go back and put in information, so just wait until September of your senior year. You can start this ID process before the application.
Would that apply to students that are in Running Start or taking courses at a community college?
Running Start classes are free, so they don't have to, to worry about financial aid at this point. Yeah, they're yes, they're a college student, but they're also still in high school, so it all kind of comes under that high school umbrella. So you don't have to worry about that for Running Start or Lana.
Yeah, if you didn't catch that, that was a question about Running Start. If a student is in Running Start right now, the only fees they're on the hook for is lab fees and occasionally books. Almost everything else as far as the classes go is totally covered. Did we have another question? Or comments, or thoughts, concerns, things I didn't cover that you guys have questions about that might be totally unrelated to this? Did we need to go through FASFA step by step from last year? I can throw up the slides and we can zip through it. We need popcorn for that. Well, other than that, once again, I'm Jasper Adams from the College and Career Center, and Peggy Shay is my coworker there. We're both available by appointment and email. Occasionally you can get us by phone, but there's usually students in our room, so leave a message. And we're happy to meet with you guys. There's a link on the College and Career Center tab on the Juanita High School website that has a direct Calendly link where you're able to book an appointment with either of us. We are in the school before, during, and after. Obviously, we're still here. Make sure to grab some flyers on the way out. We have a senior checklist. We have a guide to completing the FASFA with a big overview of steps and a little flip book between the difference between 4-year and 2-year colleges if you're interested in increasing your required funds that way. Thank you all very much for being here. It's been a pleasure. Thank you. Yeah.